down to his last $100 and about to lose his family farm after 3 consecutive failed harvests. Noah Bennett made a desperate decision to bid on an abandoned mansion at a county auction that nobody else wanted. What he discovered hidden in the basement would not only change his life forever, but would uncover a criminal empire that had been operating in the shadows for decades. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. Noah Bennett stared at the foreclosure notice pinned to his kitchen wall, the words "Final Warning" stamped in angry red letters across the top. Just 2 generations ago, his grandfather had built the Bennett family farm into one of the most productive in the state. Now at 38, Noah was about to lose everything. 3 years of unprecedented drought had devastated his crops, dried up his savings, and left him drowning in debt. The bank had already extended his loan twice, but their patience had run out. With only $100 left in his account and 30 days until eviction, Noah felt the crushing weight of failure on his shoulders. His wife Emma had already taken their 2 children to stay with her parents in the neighboring county, unable to bear watching their life crumble day by day. "You need to accept reality, Noah," Emma had said during their last phone call. "Some things can't be fixed, no matter how hard you try." But surrender wasn't in Noah's nature. The Bennett farm was his heritage, his responsibility. There had to be a way to save it. He just hadn't found it yet. That morning, while scrolling through local news on his ancient laptop, a small advertisement caught Noah's attention. The county was holding an auction for seized and abandoned properties. Most were foreclosed homes or small businesses. But one listing stood out: former Costello estate, minimum bid $100. The description mentioned structural issues, possible water damage, and the fact that the property had been abandoned for nearly a decade. Noah clicked on the listing and found himself staring at a once grand Italian-style mansion, its white stone facade now stained and crumbling, windows boarded up, and grounds overgrown with weeds. Located just 20 miles from his farm, the Costello estate had once been the crown jewel of the county, a lavish home rumored to have belonged to someone with connections to organized crime, though nothing had ever been proven. The auction was scheduled for that afternoon. Noah closed his laptop and paced the kitchen floor. It was madness to even consider bidding on a dilapidated mansion when he couldn't even save his own farm. But something about the listing had ignited a spark of hope within him. If the minimum bid was only $100, exactly what he had left, perhaps others would overlook it too. If he could secure it, maybe there was something of value inside that could help him save the farm. It was a long shot, but at this point, Noah had nothing left to lose. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. 3 hours later, Noah stood at the back of the county courthouse, nervously clutching his last $100 bill in his pocket. The auction room was packed with real estate investors, flippers, and curious locals. Most of the properties went for well above their minimum bids, dashing Noah's fleeting hopes that he might have a chance at anything decent. When the auctioneer finally called out Lot 23, the former Costello estate, Noah held his breath. The auctioneer described the property as a challenge for the right buyer and mentioned significant renovation costs. Photos of the deteriorating mansion flashed on a screen behind him, showing broken windows, collapsing ceilings, and grounds that resembled a jungle more than a garden. Opening bid at $100. Do I hear $100? The auctioneer called. The room fell silent. Investors exchanged glances, a few shook their heads, and others scrolled through their phones, clearly uninterested in what appeared to be a money pit. $100, Noah called out, his voice cracking slightly. The auctioneer's eyes scanned the room. I have $100. Do I hear $200? No one responded. $100 going once. Going twice. Noah braced himself, certain someone would jump in at the last second. Sold. To the gentleman in the back for $100. A murmur rippled through the crowd as Noah made his way to the front. As he signed the paperwork, the clerk gave him a puzzled look. "You know what you're getting into, right?" she asked quietly. "That place has been empty since old man Costello disappeared. Some say it's haunted. Others say there's a reason no one wants to touch it." Noah forced a smile. "I'm good with a hammer. Nothing a little hard work can't fix." The clerk handed him the keys and a folder of documents. "Just be careful. That place has a history most folks around here prefer not to talk about." By late afternoon, Noah drove his rusted pickup truck along the winding road leading to the Costello estate. The iron gates hung askew on crumbling stone pillars, barely attached to the perimeter wall that encircled the property. He pushed them open with a screech of metal and drove up the overgrown driveway. The mansion loomed before him, 3 stories of faded grandeur. Vines crawled up the once white walls, and several windows on the upper floors were broken. The marble steps leading to the massive front door were cracked, with weeds pushing through the fissures. Noah paused, taking in the enormity of what he'd done. He had spent his last dollar on a decrepit mansion that might cost millions to restore properly. "What have I gotten myself into?" he whispered, climbing the steps. The ornate brass key turned with difficulty in the lock. The door swung open with a haunting creak, revealing a grand foyer covered in a thick layer of dust. Despite the years of neglect, the interior retained hints of its former opulence. A crystal chandelier hung precariously from the ceiling. Marble floors stretched beneath the grime, and a sweeping staircase curved upward to the second floor. Noah stepped inside, his footprints marking the dust behind him. The air was stale and musty, carrying the scent of mold and decay. Sheets draped over furniture created ghostly silhouettes throughout the rooms. He moved deeper into the house, pulling back covers to reveal ornate furniture, antique sofas, marble-topped tables, and hand-carved chairs. Despite the dust and cobwebs, many pieces appeared to be valuable antiques. "This could be worth something," Noah muttered, running his fingers over an intricately carved cabinet. Room after room revealed similar treasures, artwork still hanging on walls, china cabinets filled with delicate porcelain, and bookshelves lined with leather-bound volumes. It was as if the previous owners had simply vanished, leaving everything behind. In the kitchen, surprisingly modern appliances stood in stark contrast to the rest of the house. The room was massive, with a central island, double ovens, and a walk-in pantry. Noah opened the refrigerator out of curiosity and immediately recoiled at the stench of food that had spoiled years ago. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows through the broken windows, Noah realized he needed light to continue exploring. He found a fuse box in a hallway off the kitchen and flipped switches, not expecting anything to happen. To his surprise, a few lights flickered on, illuminating the corridors with a weak, yellowish glow. "Power's still connected," he said in disbelief. It seemed odd that an abandoned property would still have electricity, but Noah didn't question his good fortune. The first floor contained the main living areas, the foyer, living room, dining room, kitchen, library, and a home office with an antique desk. The second floor housed numerous bedrooms, each with its own bathroom and walk-in closet. The master suite was particularly impressive, with a bedroom larger than Noah's entire farmhouse, a marble bathroom featuring a sunken tub, and closets still filled with expensive-looking clothes. Throughout his exploration, Noah compiled a mental inventory of items that might fetch a good price: furniture, artwork, electronics that were outdated but had been top of the line when new. If he could sell even a fraction of what the mansion contained, he might have enough to make a payment on his farm's mortgage and buy himself some time. As night fell completely, Noah found himself in a corridor on the first floor, examining a series of family photographs. They showed a stern-looking man with silver hair and piercing eyes, often pictured alongside a much younger woman and a teenage boy. In many photos, the man was surrounded by other serious-looking men in expensive suits, all wearing matching pinky rings with some kind of emblem. The final door on the corridor was locked. Unlike the ornate handles throughout the rest of the house, this one was modern, a heavy-duty deadbolt that seemed out of place in the aging mansion. Noah tried each key on the ring the clerk had given him, but none worked. Curiosity piqued, he examined the door more closely. It was solid oak, reinforced with metal bands, far sturdier than necessary for an interior door. Whatever lay behind it, someone had gone to great lengths to keep it secure. Noah returned to his truck and retrieved a crowbar from his toolbox. Back at the door, he hesitated. Breaking in felt wrong, yet this was his property now, legally purchased. After a moment's deliberation, he wedged the crowbar into the doorframe and applied pressure. The wood splintered with a crack and the door swung inward, revealing a narrow staircase descending into darkness. Noah fumbled for a light switch and found one at the top of the stairs. Fluorescent lights flickered on, illuminating bare concrete steps leading to a basement level. "That's odd," Noah muttered, noting how different this utilitarian staircase was from the ornate architecture of the rest of the house. He descended cautiously, one hand trailing along the cool cinder block wall. At the bottom, he found another heavy door, this one with a keypad lock. Unlike the rest of the house, this area showed no signs of neglect. The floor was clean, and the air smelled faintly of disinfectant rather than mold. Next to the keypad was a small envelope taped to the wall. Noah opened it and found a card with a 6-digit number scrawled on it. With trembling fingers, he punched the numbers into the keypad. There was a soft beep, and the lock disengaged. Heart pounding, Noah pushed the door open and stepped into a room unlike anything he'd expected to find in an abandoned mansion. It was a large, windowless space with concrete walls, divided into sections. One area contained several large safes. Another housed metal filing cabinets. A third held racks of computer servers, still humming softly. The final section featured a desk with multiple monitors, all displaying security camera feeds from around the property, including one showing his truck parked outside. "What the hell is this place?" Noah whispered, his voice echoing in the cavernous room. He approached the safes first. The largest one had another keypad lock. On a hunch, Noah entered the same code from the envelope. The safe clicked open, revealing stacks upon stacks of cash bundled in neat packages. American dollars, euros, and several currencies Noah didn't recognize filled the safe from floor to ceiling. Stunned, Noah pulled out one of the bundles. It was $10,000 in $100 bills. He grabbed another and another, counting quickly. The safe contained millions, perhaps tens of millions, in cash alone. The second safe held jewelry, diamond necklaces, gold watches, and gemstones that sparkled under the fluorescent lights. The third contained passports and identity documents, all featuring different names but the same photos of the people Noah had seen in the family pictures upstairs. The filing cabinets were meticulously organized, containing ledgers, contracts, and documents in multiple languages. Some folders were labeled with business names, others with dates stretching back decades. Noah pulled out a folder at random and found detailed records of transactions, shipments, payments, and names, all recorded in neat handwriting. One cabinet was filled with photos and newspaper clippings. Many showed the silver-haired man from upstairs shaking hands with politicians, police chiefs, and business leaders. Others documented crime scenes, surveillance photos, and mugshots, all carefully annotated with dates and locations. The computer desk was equally unsettling. The monitors displayed not only security feeds, but also tracking systems for what appeared to be shipments moving across the country. One screen showed bank account balances with numbers that made Noah's head spin. As Noah tried to process what he was seeing, a particular file on the desk caught his eye. It was labeled Bennett Farm. With shaking hands, he opened it. Inside were photos of his own farm, documents showing his mortgage details, and notes about his financial struggles. The final page was a memorandum dated just 3 months ago, outlining a plan to create artificial drought conditions by damming a creek that fed into his irrigation system. The note concluded, "Operation successful. Bennett Farm value dropping as expected. Acquisition target price achieved. Proceed with foreclosure and purchase in Q3. Noah sank into the desk chair, the truth hitting him like a physical blow. His farm's failure hadn't been due to bad luck or climate change. It had been deliberately engineered by whoever owned this mansion, the Costello family, as part of some larger plan. But why would a family with this kind of wealth and apparent criminal connections target his modest farm? What could they possibly want with his land? As Noah contemplated this question, his eyes drifted to a large map mounted on the wall. It showed the county divided into color-coded sections. His farm was highlighted in red, along with several neighboring properties. Together, they formed a perfect circle around a spot marked with an X. Noah cross-referenced the map with the filing cabinet documents and found a geological survey tucked in a folder, labeled Project Goldmine. The report confirmed what the map suggested. Beneath Noah's farm and the surrounding properties lay one of the largest undiscovered gold deposits in the region. The Costello family had been systematically acquiring all the land above the deposit. Noah's farm was the final piece they needed. The realization sent Noah's mind racing. He wasn't just a failing farmer who'd stumbled upon a criminal's abandoned home. He'd unwittingly stepped into the middle of an elaborate criminal operation, one that was still active, judging by the humming servers and updated security feeds. As this thought formed, a red light began flashing on the security console. One of the monitors switched to show a black SUV approaching the front gate. Noah's heart lurched. Someone was coming. And given what he'd discovered, he doubted they were bringing a welcome basket for the new neighbor. He needed to act quickly. Noah grabbed a duffel bag from a cabinet, filled it with cash, and took the file about his farm and the gold deposit. He searched the desk and found a USB drive, which he pocketed along with the family photos from upstairs. Before leaving the basement, Noah noticed a small safe hidden under the desk. Using the same code again, he opened it to find a handgun and several clips of ammunition. Though he'd never owned a gun, Noah took it, feeling he might need protection. As he raced up the stairs, Noah's mind whirled with possibilities. With the cash from just one bag, he could pay off his farm's mortgage and still have enough left to restore his operations. The evidence of the Costello family's manipulation of his property could potentially lead to criminal charges. The gold deposit information was worth millions to the right mining company. For the first time in years, Noah felt a surge of hope. What had begun as a desperate last gamble might just save everything he cared about. But first, he needed to escape before whoever was approaching discovered him. Noah reached the top of the stairs just as headlights swept across the front windows of the mansion. Time had run out. Whoever owned this place, whoever had systematically destroyed his livelihood, had returned. And Noah Bennett was standing in their secret command center, a bag of their money in one hand and their darkest secrets in the other. Noah crouched by the window, watching as the black SUV rolled to a stop in front of the mansion. 2 men stepped out, both wearing dark suits despite the late hour. One was tall and lean with a shaved head. The other shorter and muscular with a beard. They moved with the confident precision of professionals, scanning the grounds before approaching the front door. Noah's mind raced. The front door was the only entrance he knew, and these men were blocking it. He needed another way out. Clutching the duffel bag tightly, he retreated deeper into the mansion, moving as quietly as possible across the dusty floors. The sound of a key turning in the front lock echoed through the foyer. Noah ducked into the kitchen, frantically searching for an alternative exit. He spotted a door at the far end that he hadn't explored earlier. It led to a butler's pantry, and beyond that, a service entrance. Noah slipped through just as he heard the front door open. "Someone's been here," a gruff voice announced. "Fresh footprints in the dust." "Check the basement," another voice responded. "If they found it, we have orders." Noah eased the service door open and stepped outside into the cool night air. The door opened onto a stone patio with steps leading down to what had once been a manicured garden, now wild with overgrowth. To his right, a path led toward a detached garage. To his left, the property extended into dense woods. He chose the garage, hoping to find cover for his escape. The garage doors were locked, but a side door yielded to his push. Inside, 4 vehicles sat under dust covers, luxury cars from the looks of them. Noah pulled back one cover to reveal a gleaming black Mercedes, probably worth more than his entire farm. An idea struck him. If he could find the keys, one of these vehicles might be his ticket out. He began searching drawers and cabinets until he found a key box mounted on the wall. Inside were dozens of keys, each labeled. He grabbed the one marked Mercedes S550, just as shouting erupted from the direction of the mansion. "The basement's been breached. Check the grounds." Flashlight beams swept across the windows of the garage. Noah ducked behind one of the covered cars, heart hammering in his chest. The side door he'd entered through burst open, and the beam of a flashlight cut through the darkness. "Check all the vehicles," the bearded man ordered. "He might be hiding." Noah clutched the gun he'd taken from the basement, his finger hovering near the trigger. He'd never fired a weapon at another person, never imagined he would need to. But these men would kill him without hesitation if they found him, of that he was certain. The man moved methodically through the garage, pulling covers off each vehicle. Noah remained hidden, barely breathing, waiting for his moment. When the man turned to check the last car, Noah made his move. He slipped from behind his cover and dashed for the Mercedes, key in hand. "Hey!" the man shouted, swinging his flashlight toward the sound. Noah fumbled with the key fob, pressing the unlock button. The Mercedes chirped and its lights flashed. He yanked the door open and threw himself inside, tossing the duffel bag onto the passenger seat. The man was running toward him now, reaching inside his jacket. With shaking hands, Noah jammed the key into the ignition and turned. The engine roared to life, its powerful purr filling the garage. He slammed the car into reverse just as the man pulled out a handgun. The back window exploded as a bullet tore through it. Noah floored the accelerator, and the Mercedes shot backward out of the garage, tires screeching against the concrete. He spun the wheel, shifting into drive, and sped down the driveway toward the gate. The second man appeared at the front of the mansion, raising his weapon. Bullets pinned off the car's bodywork as Noah hunched low in his seat, praying none would find him. The gates loomed ahead, still open from his arrival earlier. He burst through them onto the main road, the powerful engine of the Mercedes, quickly putting distance between him and the mansion. In the rearview mirror, Noah saw the men scrambling for their SUV. They would pursue him, he knew. And they wouldn't stop until they'd recovered what he'd taken. Noah's hands trembled on the steering wheel as adrenaline coursed through his system. He needed to get somewhere safe, somewhere he could process what he'd discovered and figure out his next move. Not the farm, that would be the first place they'd look. Not Emma's parents' house, he couldn't endanger his family. He reached for his phone to call the police, then hesitated. The photos he'd seen in the basement showed the Costello family with high-ranking law enforcement officials. How could he know who to trust? For all he knew, the local police were on the Costello payroll. As the road stretched before him, Noah made a split-second decision. There was one person he could trust, one person who might help him make sense of all this. His old friend Marcus Wright, who worked as an investigative journalist for the regional newspaper. Marcus had been investigating corruption in the county for years, often at great personal risk. Noah took a series of random turns, making sure he wasn't being followed, then headed toward the city where Marcus lived. As he drove, his mind replayed everything he'd discovered in the basement. The Costello family hadn't just been targeting his farm. They'd been systematically acquiring all the land above a massive gold deposit. They'd manipulated water sources, probably bribed officials, and were planning to extract the gold once they owned all the necessary properties. His farm, his family's legacy, had simply been collateral damage in their grand scheme. The thought filled Noah with a rage he'd never experienced before. These people had destroyed his livelihood, separated him from his family, all for their own profit. And they'd almost gotten away with it. After an hour of careful driving, Noah parked the Mercedes in a public garage and called Marcus from a payphone. His friend answered groggily, clearly having been asleep. "Marcus, it's Noah Bennett. I need your help. I'm in trouble, serious trouble." "Noah, what's going on? Where are you?" "I can't explain over the phone. Can I come to your place? It's urgent." Marcus gave him the address, and Noah took a taxi, constantly checking for any signs of pursuit. Marcus lived in a small apartment in a nondescript building, downtown, the kind of place a journalist on a modest salary could afford. When Noah knocked, Marcus opened the door immediately, concern etched on his face. "My God, Noah, you look like you've seen a ghost." Noah stepped inside, clutching the duffel bag. "I need to show you something, and you're not going to believe it." Over the next hour, Noah laid out everything: the auction, the mansion, the basement with its safes full of cash and incriminating documents. He showed Marcus the file about his farm, the geological survey, and the photos he'd taken of the map showing the gold deposit. Marcus listened in stunned silence, examining each document with the practiced eye of an investigative journalist. When Noah finished his story, Marcus leaned back in his chair, running a hand through his disheveled hair. "This is bigger than anything I've ever covered," he said finally. "The Costello family has been rumored to have connections to organized crime for decades, but there's never been proof. This changes everything. What should I do?" Noah asked. "Go to the police?" Marcus shook his head. "Not yet. Like you said, we don't know who to trust. I have contacts at the FBI. People I know aren't on anyone's payroll. But first, we need to secure this evidence." Marcus pulled out his laptop and inserted the USB drive Noah had taken. It contained thousands of files, financial records, communications, photos, and videos documenting years of criminal activity. The Costello operation extended far beyond the gold deposit scheme. There was evidence of money laundering, extortion, bribery of public officials, and worse. "This is enough to bring down not just the Costello family, but half the power structure in the county," Marcus said, his eyes wide. "No wonder they were willing to kill you to get it back." "So what now?" "Now we make copies of everything. Digital and physical backups, stored in multiple secure locations. Then we contact my FBI source, but carefully. The wrong move could get us both killed." As dawn broke, Noah and Marcus had created several copies of all the evidence. Marcus had also photographed the cash, nearly $2 million in total, and documented its serial numbers. The money itself they locked in a floor safe in Marcus's bedroom. "You should get some rest," Marcus told Noah, seeing the exhaustion in his friend's face. "Take my bedroom. I'm too wired to sleep anyway." Noah nodded gratefully, the events of the past 24 hours catching up with him. As he lay on Marcus's bed, staring at the ceiling, he thought about Emma and the kids. How would they react when they learned the truth? That their hardships hadn't been due to Noah's failure as a farmer, but because of a criminal conspiracy. Would Emma come home? Despite his racing thoughts, exhaustion won out, and Noah fell into a deep, dreamless sleep. He woke to the sound of urgent voices. Blinking away his grogginess, Noah checked his watch. He'd been asleep for nearly 6 hours. He stumbled into the living room to find Marcus speaking with a stern-faced woman in a dark suit. "Noah, this is Special Agent Diana Chun," Marcus said. "She's with the FBI's Public Corruption Unit. I've briefed her on what we found." Agent Chun extended her hand. "Mr. Bennett, I understand you've had quite an experience. I've reviewed some of the evidence, and I believe you've stumbled onto something significant. But you're also in considerable danger. The men from last night, they'll be looking for me," Noah said. "Not just them," Chun replied grimly. "Based on what I've seen, the Costello organization has extensive resources and connections. Once they realize what you've taken, they'll deploy everything they have to find you." "What about my family?" Noah asked, a fresh wave of fear washing over him. "My wife and children are staying with her parents. Are they in danger too?" "Possibly," Chun admitted. "We should move them to a safe location as a precaution." "Where are they now?" Noah provided Emma's parents' address, and Chun immediately dispatched agents to secure his family. She then outlined what would happen next. Noah would be placed under FBI protection while they analyzed the evidence and built a case. Marcus would work with them as a confidential informant, using his journalistic skills to help connect the dots. "What about my farm?" Noah asked. "The foreclosure is still proceeding. We can freeze that process once we bring charges," Chun explained. "And if your allegations about the Costello family's manipulation of your water supply are proven, you'd have grounds for a substantial civil lawsuit." As they were preparing to leave for a secure FBI facility, Noah's phone rang. It was Emma. "Noah? There are FBI agents here. They say we're in danger. What have you done?" Noah took a deep breath. "Emma, listen to me. Everything that's happened to us, to the farm, it wasn't an accident. It wasn't my fault. I can prove it now." "What are you talking about?" "The drought that ruined our crops was engineered. The Costello family dammed our water source to force us into foreclosure. They wanted our land because there's gold underneath it." There was a long pause. "That sounds insane, Noah." "I know. But it's true. I found proof, documents, maps, everything. The FBI is involved now. They're going to protect us until it's all sorted out." Another pause then. "The agent here says we need to pack some things. They're taking us to a safe house. Go with them, Emma. I'll explain everything when I see you. I promise this is real. Things are going to get better now." "I hope you're right," Emma said, her voice softening slightly. "The kids miss you. I miss you too." After the call ended, Noah felt a renewed sense of purpose. His family was safe, and for the first time in years, there was hope, not just for saving the farm, but for justice. The Costello family had nearly destroyed everything he loved, but in their arrogance, they'd left behind the very evidence that would bring them down. As Noah gathered his things, preparing to leave with Agent Chun, Marcus approached with a determined expression. "I've been thinking about your story, Noah. It's not just about corruption or organized crime. It's about a man who refused to give up, who took one last desperate chance and uncovered the truth. This could be the story of a lifetime for both of us." "What do you mean?" "With the FBI's approval, once the case breaks, I want to write a book about this. The farmer who took down a Mafia empire with his last $100. People need to hear this story about fighting against the odds, about standing up to powerful forces that seem untouchable." Noah nodded slowly. "If it helps expose the truth, I'm all for it." Agent Chun interrupted their conversation. "We need to move now. My team has secured a location, but we shouldn't stay here any longer than necessary." As they headed for the door, Noah took one last look at the duffel bag containing the evidence of the Costello family's crimes. What had started as a desperate bid to save his farm had become something much larger, a chance to bring down a criminal organization that had operated with impunity for decades. Outside, the morning sun cast long shadows across the city streets. Noah Bennett, the failing farmer who'd spent his last $100 on an abandoned mansion, was now at the center of what would become one of the biggest corruption cases in the state's history. Whatever happened next, he knew one thing for certain: he would never give up fighting for what was right. As they drove away, Noah's phone chimed with a text message from Emma. "The kids want to know if you're a hero now." "What should I tell them?" Noah smiled for the first time in days. "Tell them heroes are just ordinary people who refuse to quit when things get tough," he typed back. "And tell them I'm coming home soon." 3 days later, Noah sat in a conference room at the FBI field office, watching on a monitor as agents executed search warrants at multiple locations connected to the Costello family. The evidence he'd discovered had blown the case wide open, revealing a criminal network that extended far beyond what anyone had suspected. The patriarch, Vincent Costello, had been arrested trying to board a private jet to a country with no extradition treaty. His associates, including the 2 men who had chased Noah at the mansion, were in custody as well. Bank accounts were frozen, assets seized, and charges filed for crimes ranging from racketeering to attempted murder. Most importantly for Noah, the FBI had confirmed his allegations about the manipulation of his farm's water supply. Engineers had discovered an elaborate system of dams and diversions constructed on public land adjacent to Noah's property, all designed to create artificial drought conditions precisely where his irrigation system drew water. "Mr. Bennett," Agent Chun said, entering the conference room with a folder, "I have some news you'll want to hear." She laid out a series of documents on the table. "The U.S. Attorney's Office has filed to permanently stay your foreclosure proceedings, citing criminal interference. Additionally, they're preparing a restitution order that would compensate you for damages caused by the Costello family's actions." Noah stared at the documents, hardly believing what he was hearing. "There's more," Chun continued. "The geological survey you found was accurate. There is a significant gold deposit beneath your property and the surrounding area. Mining companies are already expressing interest in exploration rights." "What does that mean for my farm?" "It means you have options, Mr. Bennett. You could sell the mineral rights while retaining ownership of the surface land, allowing you to continue farming. Or you could sell the property outright for what would likely be a substantial sum." Noah's mind reeled with possibilities. Just a week ago, he'd been on the verge of losing everything. Now he was being offered a chance not just to save his farm, but to transform his family's future. "When can I see my family?" he asked, setting the documents aside. "We're bringing them here tomorrow," Chun replied. "Once Mr. Costello's remaining associates are in custody, the immediate threat will be neutralized." That night, alone in his hotel room under FBI protection, Noah called Emma again. Their conversations had grown warmer with each passing day as the full truth of the situation became clear. "The agents told us we're coming to see you tomorrow," Emma said, excitement evident in her voice. "The kids are packing their favorite toys." "I can't wait," Noah replied. "There's so much to tell you, Emma. So much has happened. The FBI agent here showed me some of the news coverage. They're calling you a hero, Noah, the farmer who brought down a crime family." Noah laughed softly. "I'm no hero. I was just trying to save our farm." "And did you? Save the farm?" "I did more than that," Noah said. "But we'll talk about all of it tomorrow. For now, just know that things are going to be different. Better." After they hung up, Noah stood by the window, looking out at the city lights. His thoughts turned to the Costello mansion, the place where everything had changed. In a strange way, he felt grateful to it. If he hadn't taken that desperate chance, if he hadn't spent his last $100 on that abandoned property, he would have lost everything. Instead, he'd found not just money or evidence, but something more valuable, the truth. The truth about why his farm had failed, the truth about the powers that had worked against him. And most importantly, the truth about himself, that he wasn't a failure. That his instinct to keep fighting had been right all along. The next day, when Emma and the children arrived at the FBI office, Noah was waiting. His son Jack, 8 years old, ran to him first, throwing his arms around Noah's waist. 6-year-old Lily followed, launching herself into his embrace. And then Emma was there too, hesitant at first but then joining the family huddle. "Daddy, are we rich now?" Jack asked, his eyes wide with childish wonder. Noah looked at Emma, then back at his son. "We have what we need," he said. "And most importantly, we have each other." Later, as they sat together in a private room, Noah explained everything to Emma, the auction, the mansion, the discovery in the basement, and what it all meant for their future. He laid out the options before them, to rebuild the farm, to sell it and start fresh elsewhere, to use the mineral rights to secure their children's education and their own retirement. "What do you want to do?" Emma asked, reaching for his hand. Noah thought for a moment. "I want to rebuild our life," he said finally. "Whether that's on the farm or somewhere else, I don't care. I just want us to be together." Emma squeezed his hand. "You never gave up," she said softly. "Even when I did, you kept fighting." "Sometimes that's all we can do," Noah replied. "Take one more chance, make one more try." As they discussed their future, Agent Chun entered with news. The Costello case was expanding, with investigations now reaching into City Hall, the county government, and beyond. The evidence Noah had discovered was proving to be even more significant than initially thought. "You've started something important, Mr. Bennett," she told him. "Something that will clean up corruption that's festered for generations." Noah nodded, humbled by the magnitude of what had been set in motion. "I just wanted to save my farm," he said simply. "Sometimes the biggest changes start with the smallest actions," Chun replied. "Your $100 bid at that auction may end up changing this entire region for the better." As the agent left, Noah turned back to Emma and the children. Whatever came next, whether they rebuilt the farm or started fresh elsewhere, whether they became wealthy from the gold beneath their land or simply regained the security they'd lost, they would face it together. Noah Bennett had risked everything on one last desperate chance, spending his final $100 on an abandoned mansion that no one else wanted. In doing so, he'd uncovered not just a fortune in cash but the truth that would save his family's legacy and bring justice to those who had wronged them. Some would call it luck. Others would call it destiny. But Noah knew it was something simpler and more profound. The reward for refusing to surrender when surrender seemed like the only option left. In the days and weeks that followed, as the full scope of the Costello family's crimes came to light and Noah's role in exposing them became public knowledge, people would ask him how he found the courage to make that final bid at the auction. His answer was always the same: when you have nothing left to lose, you find the strength to take the chances others won't. And sometimes, that's exactly when you discover what you've been looking for all along. 6 months had passed since the day Noah Bennett spent his last $100 on the abandoned Costello mansion. What had begun as a desperate attempt to save his family farm had evolved into the biggest corruption case the state had seen in decades. The media had dubbed it the gold mine conspiracy, and Noah's face had appeared on newspapers and television screens across the nation. Today, he stood at the edge of his property, watching as workers repaired the irrigation systems that had been sabotaged by the Costello family. The farm was alive again. Fields that had been parched and barren were now lush with new growth. The sound of tractors and the smell of freshly turned earth filled the air, bringing with it a sense of renewal that extended far beyond the land itself. Emma walked up beside him, handing him a cup of coffee. "The contractor says the new barn will be finished by the end of the month," she said, leaning against his shoulder. Noah nodded, taking a sip from the steaming mug. Just in time for the harvest. Their decision to rebuild the farm rather than sell it had surprised many, especially given the value of the gold deposit beneath their land. The mining companies had offered millions for the property, enough to set the Bennett family up for generations to come. But Noah and Emma had chosen a different path. They'd negotiated a deal that allowed them to retain ownership of the surface land while leasing the mineral rights. The arrangement provided a steady income without sacrificing their way of life or their heritage. "Dad, Dad!" Jack called, running across the field with his sister Lily trailing behind him. "The new calves are here." Noah grinned as his children approached. 6 months ago, they had been staying with their grandparents, separated from him by more than just distance. Now they were home, thriving in the renewed energy of the Bennett farm. "Let's go see them," Noah said, taking Lily's hand as she caught up, breathless with excitement. As they walked toward the newly constructed cattle pens, Noah reflected on how much had changed since that fateful day at the auction. The FBI's investigation, built on the evidence he'd discovered in the Costello mansion's basement, had led to over 50 arrests, including prominent politicians, judges, and business leaders who had been on the Costello family's payroll for years. Vincent Costello himself was facing multiple life sentences. His criminal empire, which had operated in the shadows for nearly 3 decades, had been dismantled piece by piece. Assets worth hundreds of millions had been seized, and victims of his schemes were receiving restitution. The farm itself had been transformed. With the compensation from the criminal case and income from the mineral rights lease, Noah had been able to invest in modern equipment, sustainable farming practices, and infrastructure improvements that his grandfather could only have dreamed of. But the physical changes paled in comparison to the transformation within Noah himself. The man who had once felt like a failure, who had been ready to lose everything, now moved with the quiet confidence of someone who had faced his darkest hour and emerged stronger for it. "Mr. Bennett," a voice called from near the main house. Noah turned to see Marcus Wright approaching, notebook in hand. The journalist had kept his word. He was writing a book about the Costello case, with Noah's story at its center. "Got time for a few more questions?" Marcus asked, shaking Noah's hand warmly. "Always," Noah replied. "But the kids want to see the new calves first. Why don't you join us?" As they walked, Marcus explained that the publisher was pushing to expedite the book's release due to public interest in the case. "People are fascinated by your story," he said. "The farmer who took down a Mafia empire with his last $100. It's like something out of a movie." Noah shook his head modestly. "I was just trying to save my farm." "That's exactly why it resonates," Marcus insisted. "You weren't a cop or an FBI agent. You were just an ordinary person backed into a corner who refused to give up. That's powerful." At the cattle pens, Jack and Lily pressed their faces against the fence, marveling at the newborn calves on wobbly legs. Emma explained the care and feeding schedule to the children, her knowledge of animal husbandry evident in every word. She had embraced farm life with renewed vigor, having seen firsthand how close they had come to losing it all. Later, as Emma took the children back to the house for lunch, Noah and Marcus sat on the porch, continuing their conversation. "There's something I've been wanting to ask you," Marcus said, his tone turning serious. "With everything that's happened, the fame, the money from the mineral rights, the book deals and interview offers, do you ever regret going to that auction? Taking that risk when you were down to your last $100? Noah leaned back in his chair, considering the question. "Not for a second," he said finally. "But not for the reasons you might think." "What do you mean?" "Most people focus on the outcome, the money, bringing down the Costellos, saving the farm. And yes, all of that is important. But for me, the true value was in the moment of decision itself." Noah gestured toward his fields, where workers were busy preparing for the next planting. When I went to that auction, I had nothing left except my unwillingness to surrender. Everything else had been taken from me. My savings, my pride, even my family for a time. But they couldn't take my determination to keep fighting. He turned back to Marcus. That's the real story here. Not what I found in that mansion, but what I discovered about myself when my back was against the wall. That's what I hope people take from your book. Marcus nodded thoughtfully, making notes. Speaking of the mansion, he said, have you been back since that night? No, Noah admitted. The FBI still has it cordoned off as an active crime scene. But I've thought about it often. Would you consider going back for the book? It might make for a powerful conclusion, returning to where it all began. Noah hesitated. The Costello mansion held mixed memories for him, the fear of that night, the discovery that had changed everything, the moment he'd realized his farm's failure hadn't been his fault. I'd have to think about it, he said finally. That evening, after the children were in bed, Noah discussed Marcus's suggestion with Emma. They sat on their porch swing, watching as fireflies began to illuminate the darkening fields. I think you should do it, Emma said after listening to his concerns. That place changed our lives, Noah. It's part of our story now, whether we like it or not. I know, Noah agreed. It's just, being there again will bring back everything from that time. How close we came to losing it all, the desperation I felt. Emma took his hand. Maybe that's exactly why you should go. To remind yourself how far we've come. The next morning, Noah called Agent Chun, who had become a friend during the months of investigation. She arranged for him to visit the mansion, along with Marcus and a small FBI team who were still processing evidence from the Costello operation. 3 days later, Noah found himself standing once again before the iron gates of the Costello estate. They still hung askew from the stone pillars, but now yellow crime scene tape was wrapped around them, and an FBI vehicle was parked in the overgrown driveway. Ready? Marcus asked, camera in hand to document the visit for the book. Noah nodded, pushing open the gate with the same metallic screech he remembered from his first visit. The mansion looked unchanged, still imposing despite its deterioration, still holding secrets behind its crumbling facade. Agent Chun met them at the front steps. We've secured the premises, she explained. Much of the evidence has been removed, but we've left some areas intact for ongoing investigation. As they entered the grand foyer, Noah was struck by how different it felt now. The fear and desperate hope that had accompanied his first exploration were gone, replaced by a strange sense of closure. The sheets still draped over furniture. Dust still covered the marble floors, but the mansion no longer held power over him. We've identified most of the artwork and antiques, Chun explained as they moved through the rooms. Many were stolen or purchased with illicit funds. The legitimate pieces will be auctioned, with proceeds going to a victim compensation fund. Noah paused in the hallway where he had first discovered the family photographs. The pictures were gone now, taken as evidence, but he could still vividly recall the stern-faced man with silver hair who had orchestrated so much suffering from this very house. Vincent Costello built this place in 1985, Chun said, noting Noah's interest. At the height of his power, he entertained politicians, judges, even governors here. The facade of legitimacy was important to him. They continued through the house, with Noah recounting for Marcus's benefit the details of his first exploration, the valuable antiques. The modern kitchen, the master suite larger than his entire farmhouse. Each room held memories of that night, of his growing realization that he had stumbled onto something extraordinary. Finally, they reached the locked door that had led to the basement. It stood open now, the splintered frame a reminder of Noah's desperate entry. The narrow staircase descended just as he remembered, but without the fear and uncertainty that had accompanied his first journey down. This is where everything changed, Noah said quietly as they reached the basement level. The room was largely empty now, the safes removed, the filing cabinets gone, the computer equipment confiscated. Only the desk remained, its monitors dark and silent. "We found over 50 million in cash in those safes," Chun told them. "Jewelry worth another 20 million. Documents implicating people in positions of power across 3 states. It was, quite frankly, the mother lode." Noah approached the spot where he had found the folder labeled Bennett Farm, the proof that his failure had been engineered. "This is where I discovered the truth," he said to Marcus. "Right here at this desk." As he spoke, a memory surfaced, the red light flashing on the security console, the black SUV approaching the gates. The desperate flight up the stairs, clutching the evidence that would save his farm and expose decades of corruption. "It's strange," Noah said, turning to Marcus and Chun. "Standing here now, knowing everything that's happened since, I almost want to thank Vincent Costello." "Thank him?" Marcus asked, surprised. "The man who nearly destroyed your life?" Noah smiled ruefully. "If he hadn't targeted my farm, if I hadn't been driven to that auction, if I hadn't bought this place with my last $100, none of this would have happened. His own greed and arrogance created the circumstances that brought him down." Chun nodded thoughtfully. "There's a certain poetic justice to it." As they prepared to leave, Noah took one final look around the basement. "What will happen to this place?" he asked Chun. "Once we've completed the investigation, it will probably be sold, with proceeds going to the victim fund," she explained. "Though given its history, I'm not sure who would want to buy it." Noah thought about the mansion, its faded grandeur, its dark secrets, its pivotal role in his own story. "Maybe someone who sees potential where others see problems," he said. "Someone willing to take a chance." On the drive back to the farm, Noah and Marcus discussed the visit and its significance for the book. "How did it feel, going back there?" Marcus asked. "Liberating," Noah replied after a moment's reflection. 6 months ago, I was a desperate man clutching at one last chance. Today, I walked through those rooms as someone who survived the worst and came out stronger." When they arrived at the farm, Emma was waiting on the porch with news. "The governor's office called," she said excitedly. "They want you to speak at next month's agricultural summit about resilience in farming and standing up against corruption." Noah laughed in disbelief. "Me? Speaking to agricultural experts and politicians? Who better?" Emma countered. "You've lived it, Noah. Your story matters." That night, after Marcus had left and the children were asleep, Noah sat at the kitchen table reviewing the draft outline for the book. Emma joined him, bringing 2 cups of tea. "Marcus wants to title it The Last $100, Noah said, showing her the proposal. "What do you think?" Emma considered it. "It captures the essence of it, how something so small can lead to something so significant." "I like it." Noah nodded in agreement, then looked around their kitchen, the heart of their home, the place where, 6 months earlier, he had stared at a foreclosure notice and felt his world collapsing. Now it was full of life again, of plans for the future, of the quiet confidence that comes from weathering a storm. "I've been thinking about what to say at the governor's summit," he said, taking a sip of tea. "And I want to talk about second chances, not just getting them, but creating them. About how sometimes the darkest moment is actually the turning point." Emma reached across the table to take his hand. "You created your own second chance, Noah. When everyone else saw a ruined farm and an abandoned mansion, you saw possibilities." The next morning dawned clear and bright. Noah rose early, as farmers do, and walked his fields before breakfast. The crops were growing strong, the irrigation systems working perfectly, the land healing from years of artificially induced drought. As he reached the far boundary of his property, Noah could see in the distance the excavation equipment from the mining company, preparing for preliminary assessment of the gold deposit. The operation would begin in earnest the following year, bringing jobs and prosperity to a region that had suffered under the Costello family's corrupt influence. His phone rang. Marcus, calling with news that the book proposal had been accepted by a major publisher. "They're offering an advance that will make your head spin," the journalist said excitedly. "This is going to be big, Noah." After thanking Marcus and ending the call, Noah stood for a moment, taking in the view of his revitalized farm. He thought about the chain of events that had led him here: the drought, the foreclosure notice, the auction, the abandoned mansion, the discovery in the basement. Each link in that chain had seemed like a disaster at the time. Each step had appeared to be taking him further from his goals rather than toward them. Yet each had been necessary to reach this moment. Noah Bennett, the farmer who had spent his last $100 on an abandoned Mafia mansion, had not just saved his family's legacy. He had uncovered truth, exposed corruption, and in the process, rediscovered the most valuable resource of all: the unwavering determination to keep moving forward, even when the path ahead seems impossibly dark. As he walked back toward the farmhouse where Emma and the children were waiting for breakfast, Noah reflected on the lesson at the heart of his journey. Sometimes the greatest opportunities come disguised as the worst disasters. Sometimes the last dollar you have is the one that changes everything. And sometimes, the simple act of refusing to give up when surrender seems like the only rational choice is the very thing that opens doors you never knew existed. The Bennett farm would continue to thrive, not just because of the gold beneath its soil or the compensation from the Costello case, but because of the resilience of the family who worked it. They had learned firsthand that no challenge was insurmountable, no setback permanent, as long as they faced it together. In the years to come, Noah would often be asked about the moment he decided to bid on the abandoned mansion, what he was thinking, what he was feeling, how he found the courage when he had nothing left. His answer was always the same: "I didn't see it as courage at the time. I saw it as necessity." Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is simply refuse to accept defeat, even when victory seems impossible. It was this message he would carry to the governor's summit, to the book tours that would follow, to the countless interviews and speaking engagements that would make his story known across the country. Not a tale of luck or chance, but of perseverance, of creating opportunity where none seemed to exist. And whenever someone facing their own challenges would ask him for advice, Noah Bennett, the farmer who took down a Mafia empire with his last $100, would smile and say, "Remember that your lowest moment might just be the beginning of your greatest chapter. The key is to stay in the story long enough to find out." 5 years had passed since Noah Bennett's incredible discovery in the abandoned Costello mansion. What had begun as a desperate bid to save his family farm had evolved into a transformative journey, not just for Noah, but for an entire community. Today, the Bennett farm stood as a symbol of resilience and innovation, drawing visitors from across the country who came to learn about sustainable agriculture and the power of perseverance. On this crisp autumn morning, Noah stood at the edge of his property, watching as a tour bus pulled up the newly paved driveway. Since the publication of Marcus Wright's best-selling book, The Last $100, the farm had become something of a pilgrimage site for people seeking inspiration. Noah had initially been reluctant about the attention, but had come to appreciate the opportunity to share his story directly in his own words. "Ready for another group?" Emma asked, joining him as the bus doors opened and visitors began to descend the steps. Noah nodded, squeezing her hand. "As long as you're handling the technical questions about crop rotation." Emma laughed. Deal. Their partnership had deepened through the challenges and triumphs of the past 5 years. Together, they had transformed the Bennett farm into a model of modern agricultural practices, combining traditional farming wisdom with cutting-edge technology. The income from the gold mining operation beneath their land had provided capital, but it was their vision and hard work that had created something truly special. As the visitors gathered around, Noah recognized the familiar mix: farmers seeking practical knowledge, students researching agricultural innovation, and ordinary people drawn by the extraordinary Story of how a man with his last $100 had uncovered a criminal empire and changed the course of his life. Welcome to Bennett Farms, Noah greeted them warmly. I'm Noah, and this is my wife Emma. We're glad you've come to see what we're building here. Over the next hour, Noah and Emma led the group through the property, explaining their irrigation systems, soil conservation techniques, and crop diversification strategies. What had once been a struggling farm on the verge of foreclosure was now a thriving operation that employed dozens of local residents and produced some of the highest crop yields in the state. Mr. Bennett, a young woman called out during a break in the tour, I read in the book that you found millions in that mansion basement. Why keep farming at all? Why not just retire? It was a question Noah had heard many times over the years, and his answer had evolved with time and perspective. Farming isn't just what I do, he explained. It's who I am. My grandfather built this place, my father maintained it, and now I'm expanding it for my children. The money from the Costello case gave us opportunities, but it didn't change our values. He gestured toward a nearby field where Jack, now 13, was helping to operate a drone that monitored crop health. Besides, there's more satisfaction in growing something than in simply having something. The tour continued to the newest addition to the property, the Bennett Agricultural Education Center. Housed in a modern building constructed with sustainable materials, the center offered training programs for struggling farmers, workshops on climate-adaptive agriculture, and community events focused on rural development. This is really the heart of what we're trying to accomplish now, Emma explained as they entered the main hall. Sharing what we've learned so others can benefit too. Inside, 11-year-old Lily was assisting with a demonstration on hydroponics for a group of elementary school students. She waved enthusiastically when she spotted her parents, her confidence a far cry from the shy child who had once been uprooted by financial hardship. As Noah watched his daughter expertly explaining how plants could grow without soil, he reflected on how completely their lives had changed since that desperate day at the county auction. The money had made many things possible, but the true transformation had been in their sense of purpose and possibility. After the tour concluded and the visitors departed, Noah retreated to his office in the renovated farmhouse. The space was a blend of old and new, his grandfather's antique desk now supporting a state-of-the-art computer, family photographs sharing wall space with awards for agricultural innovation and community service. A knock at the door interrupted his thoughts. Got a minute? Marcus Wright stood in the doorway, grinning broadly. The journalist had become a close friend. In the years since publishing The Last $100, which had spent 52 weeks on the national bestseller list and been translated into 27 languages. For you? Always, Noah replied, gesturing to a chair. What brings you out here today? Marcus sat down, placing a thick envelope on the desk. 2 things. First, the paperback edition is coming out next month with a new afterword. I wanted you to review it before it goes to press. Noah nodded, taking the envelope. And the second thing? Hollywood finally made a decision. They want to turn the book into a movie. A major studio, a list director, the works. Noah leaned back in his chair, processing the news. The possibility of a film adaptation had been discussed for years, but he had never taken it seriously. A movie? About us? About you, Marcus corrected. About a man who spent his last $100 on an abandoned mansion and ended up bringing down one of the largest criminal enterprises in the state. It's the ultimate underdog story, Noah. I don't know, Noah said hesitantly. Our lives are finally settled. Do we really want to stir everything up again? Think about the impact, Marcus urged. Your story has already inspired thousands through the book. A film would reach millions more. People need to hear stories like yours, about facing impossible odds, about refusing to surrender when everything seems lost. Before Noah could respond, there was another knock at the door. Agent Diana Chun stood there, now Deputy Director Chun of the FBI's Public Corruption Unit. The Costello case had accelerated her career, just as it had transformed Noah's life. "Sorry to interrupt," she said. "I was in the area for a meeting and thought I'd stop by." Noah welcomed her in, making introductions, though she and Marcus had met several times over the years. "Marcus was just telling me they want to make a movie about the Costello case." Chun smiled. "About time. It's still used as a case study at Quantico, you know. The most comprehensive takedown of entrenched corruption in FBI history." "How's Vincent Costello doing these days?" Marcus asked. "Still serving his multiple life sentences," Chun replied. "Though I hear he's become quite philosophical in prison. Apparently, he's writing his memoirs." Noah shook his head in disbelief. "From crime boss to author. The world is strange." "Speaking of strange," Chen said, her expression turning serious, "that's partly why I'm here. We finally completed the asset liquidation from the Costello enterprise. As the primary whistleblower, there's a substantial reward that's been allocated to you." She handed Noah an official-looking document. As he scanned it, his eyes widened at the figure listed, $20 million, in addition to what he'd already received through civil settlements and restitution. This is too much," Noah stammered. "It's less than 5% of what was recovered," Chun explained. "The law is clear on whistleblower rewards. Besides, without you, none of this would have been possible." Noah set the document down, feeling a familiar sense of unreality, the same sensation he'd experienced when discovering the cash-filled safes in the mansion basement 5 years earlier. "I don't know what to say." "Say you'll set up a foundation," Emma suggested from the doorway, where she'd been listening. "Something that can extend the work we're already doing with the education center." Noah looked up at his wife, marveling as he often did at her clarity of vision. While he had been the one to discover the mansion's secrets, Emma had been instrumental in shaping how they used those resources to benefit others. "A foundation," he repeated thoughtfully, "to help rural communities affected by corruption and economic hardship." Marcus snapped his fingers enthusiastically. "The last $100 foundation. Perfect tie-in with the book and the upcoming film." Later that evening, after Chun and Marcus had departed, Noah and Emma sat on their porch swing, watching the sunset paint the sky in brilliant oranges and pinks over their thriving fields. Jack and Lily were inside, completing homework and arguing good-naturedly about whose turn it was to feed the farm's collection of animals. "A movie, a foundation, another $20 million, Emma mused. "When does it stop feeling surreal?" Noah considered the question. "I'm not sure it ever does. Sometimes I still wake up expecting to see that foreclosure notice on the kitchen wall." Emma leaned against his shoulder. "You know what amazes me most? How close we came to a completely different life. If you hadn't gone to that auction, if you hadn't bid on that mansion with your last $100. "I've thought about that a lot," Noah admitted. "About all the moments that had to align perfectly to bring us here. The drought engineered by the Costellos, the mansion being put up for auction, no one else wanting to bid on it. Divine intervention?" Emma suggested with a small smile. "Or just the law of unexpected consequences," Noah replied. "Vincent Costello's greed created the circumstances for his own downfall. He never imagined that targeting our farm would lead to the collapse of his entire criminal empire." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, the porch swing creaking gently as they rocked. In the distance, the lights of the mining operation glowed softly, a reminder of the gold beneath their land that had been both the cause of their troubles and a source of their redemption. "What are you thinking about the foundation?" Emma asked eventually. Noah had been mulling over the idea since Chun's departure. "I wanted to focus on second chances," he said. "On helping people who are where we were 5 years ago, at the end of their rope, down to their last dollars, but not willing to give up. I like that, Emma nodded. Second chances aren't always given, Noah. Sometimes they have to be created like you did. The next morning, Noah rose before dawn, as was his habit. He made coffee and sat at the kitchen table, the very spot where, 5 years earlier, he had seen the advertisement for the county auction that would change everything. As the first light of day began to illuminate the farm, Noah opened his laptop and began to draft a mission statement for the Last $100 Foundation. The words came easily, flowing from the lessons he'd learned through his extraordinary journey. Everyone faces moments when all seems lost, he wrote. When resources are depleted, when hope fades, when surrender seems like the only rational choice. It is precisely in these moments that our greatest opportunities may appear, disguised as impossible challenges. The Last $100 Foundation exists to help people recognize and seize these opportunities, to create second chances where none seem to exist, and to transform desperation into determination. Jack wandered into the kitchen, yawning. "Morning, Dad. What are you working on?" "The future," Noah replied, smiling at his son. "Want to help?" Over breakfast, Noah explained the foundation concept to Jack and Lily, asking for their input. The children, who had grown up witnessing the transformation of their family circumstances, offered perspectives that surprised and impressed him. "It should help kids too," Lily insisted. "When our farm was failing, I was scared all the time, but no one really explained things to me." "And it should teach people about corruption," Jack added. "How to recognize it, how to fight it." Noah incorporated their suggestions into the draft, marveling at how his children had developed wisdom and compassion beyond their years. Perhaps that was the most valuable outcome of all their experiences, the lessons it had taught the next generation of Bennetts about resilience, integrity, and the power of perseverance. Later that day, Noah drove to the site of the Costello mansion, which had finally been released by the FBI after years as a crime scene. The property had been purchased by the county with plans to convert it into a community center, a fitting transformation for a place that had once housed so much corruption and greed. As Noah walked the overgrown grounds, memories flooded back, his first glimpse of the mansion, the discovery of the reinforced door leading to the basement, the moment he had opened the safe to find millions in cash. Each step of that night had seemed frightening and uncertain, yet each had been necessary to reach this moment. The mansion itself looked smaller somehow, less imposing than he remembered. Nature was already reclaiming it, vines creeping higher on the walls, saplings pushing through cracks in the marble steps. In time, if left unchecked, the structure would crumble entirely, return into the earth from which its materials had been extracted. There was a poetry in that cycle, Noah thought. The mansion had been built with the proceeds of crime, had served as the headquarters for corruption that had harmed countless lives, and would now be repurposed to serve the very community it had once exploited. Destruction giving way to creation, harm transformed into healing. On the drive back to the farm, Noah's phone rang. Marcus, calling with news that the movie studio wanted to begin production within 6 months. "They're talking about major stars for you and Emma," the journalist said excitedly. "This is going to be huge, Noah." Noah laughed, still finding the idea somewhat absurd. "Just make sure whoever plays me knows how to drive a tractor." That evening, the Bennett family hosted a barbecue for their farm employees and neighbors. As Noah grilled steaks and vegetables harvested from their own fields, he looked around at the gathering, at Emma chatting with the wife of their farm manager, at Jack showing younger children how to fly a kite in the gentle breeze, at Lily organizing a game of tag that had adults and children alike running and laughing across the lawn. This, he realized, was the true measure of success, not the money in the bank or the minerals beneath the soil, but the community they had built, the joy they had created, the security they had established not just for themselves but for others. As the sun began to set, Noah tapped a spoon against his glass, calling for attention. The crowd quieted, turning toward him expectantly. "I want to thank you all for being here," he began. 5 years ago, this farm was on the verge of foreclosure. I was down to my last $100 and running out of hope. Today, we're celebrating not just our survival, but our growth into something none of us could have imagined." He paused, looking at the faces around him: friends, neighbors, employees, family. Each connection represented a strand in the web of community that had helped them thrive. "People often ask me what I learned from everything that happened with the Costello mansion and aftermath," Noah continued. "They want to know the secret, the magic formula for turning desperate circumstances into opportunity." He smiled, glancing at Emma, who nodded encouragingly. "The truth is, there's no secret. There's only this: when you're facing your darkest hour, when you're down to your last dollar or your final chance, that's when you discover what you're truly made of. That's when you find out if you'll surrender to circumstance or rise to challenge it." Noah raised his glass. "So this toast isn't to our success or our good fortune. It's to that moment of decision we all face sooner or later, the moment when we choose to take one more step forward, even when the path ahead is shrouded in darkness. Because that step might just lead to everything you've been searching for." The gathered crowd raised their glasses, voices joining in a chorus of agreement. As Noah looked out over the farm that had nearly been lost and was now thriving beyond his wildest dreams, he felt a profound sense of gratitude, not just for what he had found in that abandoned mansion, but for what he had discovered within himself along the way. In the years that followed, the Last $100 Foundation would help thousands of families facing foreclosure and financial ruin. The film adaptation of Noah's story would inspire millions worldwide. The Bennett farm would continue to innovate and expand, becoming a case study in sustainable agriculture and community development. But for Noah Bennett, the most meaningful legacy was the simplest: the knowledge that when tested to his absolute limit, he had refused to surrender. He had taken one final chance, spent his last $100, and in doing so, had not only saved his family's heritage, but had created a ripple effect of positive change that extended far beyond his own fields. And whenever someone would ask him about the courage it took to bid on that abandoned mansion when he had nothing left, Noah's answer remained the same: the size of your bank account doesn't determine the size of your courage. Sometimes your greatest strength emerges precisely when your resources are most depleted. That's the paradox of the last $100. When you have almost nothing left to lose, you have everything to gain. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.